Hi, my name is Kate Strohmeyer, and I'd like to welcome you to the Desert Southwest Conference Rethinking Church Newsletters Training. This 10-minute training is for church leaders who are interested in improving their church communications channels. Does your church have a newsletter? How do you know if your newsletter is effective? This online training will help your church evaluate your current newsletter practices with our top 8 recommendations. Our first recommendation is to determine the goal of your newsletter. The following quote comes to you from author and speaker Seth Godin. When your church newsletter first was distributed, everyone read it. It had a few useful pieces of information that more than made up for the time it took to read. Over time, though, this newsletter, like all church newsletters, became filled with trivia, a column by the church librarian on the history of the steeple, list of which hymns were scheduled for next week. All sorts of information was included because it was easy, it was cheap, and at least some constituency within the church thought it was a good idea. Over time, the newsletter gets longer and less useful, less relevant, until one day it falls off each person's radar. Not enough time in your day, too much clutter, maybe later. Has this happened to your newsletter? Church leaders must ask before creating or redoing a newsletter is, how does your church newsletter tie into your church mission statement? An example would be to use the mission statement of the United Methodist denomination: to create disciples for the transformation of the world. Is your newsletter creating disciples, or is it used simply to share information amongst your current members? Recommendation number 2 is to determine your audience. For most newsletters, the audience is their church members, but take a moment to consider if your audience were greater. Perhaps your newsletter could help you reach new people and ultimately increase participation in worship and events. The information shared in your newsletter would change, and your members wouldn't just read the news, but they would be encouraged to share the information with friends, family, and neighbors because it was written in a way that includes everyone. Recommendation number 3 is to choose relevant content. Once your goals and audience is determined, it's easier to decide what information gets included in your newsletter to keep it relevant and concise. Did you know that 90% of your members are interested in about 10% of the information in your newsletter? But most of them don't get that 10%. Why? Because the 10% they'd find interesting is buried in the other 90% that doesn't apply to them. Let individuals on specific committees check the website, make quick phone calls to their volunteers, or use other means to share the information they need to share. Make your news more concise and to the point, and you can greatly increase the chances that most of your members will get the most important information. Strive to include only information in the newsletter that is relevant and inclusive of everyone. Information directed at select groups can be redirected and shared in more appropriate ways. And information that excludes new people, like lists of members' birthdays and anniversaries, is discouraged. It helps your audience if you keep your content concise, readable, and free of acronyms and church jargon. Recommendation number 4 is go digital. The DSC Communications Department recommends ConstantContact.com or MailChimp.com for digital newsletters. These websites make managing your email lists and designing your newsletter easy and affordable. Free accounts are available, but they do have limitations. For a small subscription fee, you receive access to additional services you may find useful, and the cost is still typically less than printing. Other digital newsletter benefits include advanced scheduling, no printing costs, no postage costs, no wasted copies, and a consistent format that your readers can count on. Recommendation number 5 is to use photos wisely. Pictures increase engagement with your readers and can make information easier to find. A picture is worth 1,000 words after all. Once your newsletter is digital, it's easy to include color images. You may have photos to share from a recent ministry project or a clip art graphic to grab your reader's attention. It's important to always include some text with an image, as some computers will not open all the information you include. So if you include an image of a flyer inviting people to a church event, you'll want to include the details in text format too. So recipients who choose not to download all of your images will still receive pertinent information. Find useful free images by searching through Creative Commons photos in Flickr. From your favorite search engine, search Flickr, and go to the Flickr website. There they have a useful search tab, where here I'm typing in mission trip to Nicaragua to find photos that may inspire someone to attend or to give to an upcoming mission trip. I don't want to use any license. I want to use Creative Commons because those will have all the copyright-free images. The very first image is of a family in poverty in Nicaragua, and you can see here it already gives credit to the photographer. I can download the photo by going to the bottom right-hand corner in its original size, and I can save it to my computer to use in an upcoming newsletter. If I wanted to use a copyrighted image, I need to sign in to Flickr. Here I'm using my Yahoo account to sign in. And then I can click on the photographer's name. It will take me to his profile, and under the More tab, I can send him a Flickr mail requesting permission to use the photo. His response would come to me through Flickr mail. By going to Flickr mail, I can see any responses in my inbox. If you want to use a copyrighted protected image in your newsletter, make sure you have specific written permission or that you have paid for the rights to use the image. Recommendation number 6 is to edit twice. Once an email is sent, it cannot be edited, so it's best to have 2 people look at a draft of your digital newsletter before sending. Other than grammar and spelling, you'll want to check for consistency in organization, in length, and in content. Your readers want to know what to expect and where to find the most pertinent information when opening your email. You will also want to keep a consistent schedule for sending your newsletter, whether it be a certain day each week or the first of the month. Also, make sure you include your church name, address, email, and phone number, so new readers who may have questions can contact you. Recommendation number 7 is to take advantage of the subject line. The 30 to 70 letters and spaces that you choose in the subject header line of an email can greatly increase the likelihood that your email will be opened. It's best not to just include the name of your church and the date of your newsletter, but to include some keywords from your content. Think of how the few words on a magazine cover in the grocery store can grab your attention. Take advantage of the subject line like it is the cover of your email. Recommendation number 8 is evaluate. Email services automatically archive your sent emails, so you have easy access to past information without having to file anything. You also have access to analytic tools. You cannot tell from a printed newsletter how many people have read it, but with email you can. Here you can see I've gone to the dashboard of the Desert Southwest Conference MailChimp account. On the dashboard, I can see how many subscribers we've had, how many opens of our last email, and how many click-throughs. At the Reports section, I'll see a graph of our last few emails. From there, I can choose one that had a high click-through rate. I can see what made that information so interesting to our readers. And I can include more of that information in our next email. There are tools to tell you how many people opened your email, who clicked on any links you included, and who shared the email by forwarding information, and if anyone didn't receive it due to a bad email address. By using the tools, you'll be able to make your emails more and more relevant each time.